Yo, what's up, everybody? So we got a call on this episode of UTADV. We're going to be talking about the Wilco OffRoad Hitchgate'S Solo swing arm spare tire mount and lots of other things. All right, stay with us. We get asked lots of questions when we're out with the Rhino, and probably the top three have to do with this Hitchgate swing arm that we have on this. This is made by Wilco OffRoad. It's a Hitchgate'S Solo, like I talked about in the intro. I'm out someplace where there's a lot of people firing off their firearms, and so I'm gonna sidebar here for just a second. It's just crazy littered out here with shotgun shells and brass and all kinds of things, and then there's targets and stuff that are left out here. And you know what, I'm a Second Amendment supporter. I have guns and I shoot and I all that kind of stuff, and I gotta tell you, no one's doing anybody any favors when it comes to supporting the Second Amendment by leaving all your trash all over the desert floor, especially here in Utah. So do us a favor, right, and police your area and pick up your stuff. I was looking for a way to relocate the spare tire out from underneath the Tahoe and put it someplace where we can access it, because 9 times out of 10, when we're in a recovery mode, you can't access the bottom of the vehicle, right? And I also wanted to free up the bottom of the vehicle to put a spare water tank up inside there. And there's one made. I will do a show on that a little bit later on as we get into different aspects of the Rhino. So I shopped out a couple of them, and they're expensive. This one was probably the least expensive one that's out there, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to go with that. But they also seem to go through and review really well as far as its action was concerned. What's really nice about this is being able to relocate that spare tire with some type of a swing arm without having to go with an aftermarket bumper, because there is no aftermarket bumper made for a Gen 4 Tahoe or Yukon or Suburban or anything that way. So this goes through and kind of simplifies that need to go through and get the swing arm going and put the spare tire someplace. But it also provides a spot for, at least for us, for a Rotopax 3-gallon gas can on there. And then we also have a 5-pound LP tank that we have mounted on there that goes through and powers our stove that we have back in the insert. And it all works out very well. So let's talk about the Wilco OffRoad Hitchgate'S Stability. Now, this is attached to a 2-inch receiver. This hitch is stock on this Tahoe, to up to 10,000 pounds, and has a tongue weight of 1,500 pounds. So it's pretty heavy duty, okay? The insert itself fits into there. There's a wedge system that as you go through and tighten it together, it wedges, and it makes a really nice solid mount inside of the 2-inch receiver. But I found that over time, it has a tendency to kind of work a little bit loose, and it has a tendency to sag a little bit. So I've kind of I've done a workaround with that. What I do is I put 2 nickels inside the 2-inch receiver, just in between the mount for the hitch gate and the bottom of the receiver, and that keeps it from sagging down, and it locks everything up nice and tightly. Now, I've also resorted to using a hitch stabilizer, which is cheap to find, but it goes through and eliminates any kind of rattle or any kind of vibration that you might have out there. And I was thinking that would be all that I would need to go through and make sure that this was a solid mount. But after miles of washboards and rough terrain, we came to realize that it would still vibrate. The spare tire, along with all the other mounts that are on there, would go through and vibrate. I could see it through my backlight, and wasn't very happy with that. In fact, after a little while, we wore out the bushings that were in the main knuckle, in the main joint on the swing arm itself, and I had to go through and replace those. Now, we haven't exceeded the weight for this. The weight I think is 150 pounds just on the swing arm itself, and we're about 140 pounds there. So I didn't think we were really stretching out the specs of this all that badly, but I just wasn't happy with that. So what we really needed was just one more contact point that would keep the swing arm and then the frame of the Hitchgate Solo together. There are two little bump stops that are there that the swing arm goes up against, but over time it started to create some space in between there. So what I did is I got some hardware and I went through and mounted that onto the Hitchgate Solo swing arm. Now, I probably voided my warranty in doing that, so you might want to check with folks if you have this and this is something that you want to do, go through and stabilize that. I do what's needed there in that respect. But in putting that together, it went through and took care of any additional vibration that we had. The Hitchgate works well. It swings everything 180 degrees out of the way to where I can access the back tailgate and have that lift up. I can also access the window part of this independent of the tailgate and still be able to get in and load stuff or unload stuff without having to undo everything, including the Hitchgate itself. So while it had its quirks, we got it to work. And when I went on to Wilco OffRoad's website, I found somebody else who kind of made the same application as well with the same hardware. And this stuff I ordered off of Amazon. I painted it so it would match, and not stand out quite so much as far as the color is concerned. But you can get this off of Amazon for $14, I think, for a pair, if I remember correctly, to go through and stabilize that a little bit better. So the second question we get is, how do we tow with this? We're towing with an Andersen Hitch, and what that does is it redistributes the weight coming off of the tongue of the trailer and the rear of the vehicle, and it takes all that and it kind of redistributes that over the hitch on a kind of like a 50-50 weight distribution, which makes the vehicle so it doesn't sag, and it makes the hitch here coming off the trailer so it doesn't come off, it doesn't sag either. And how that works is there's a bracket here that's tied to the frame rail on both sides here of the trailer tongue, and then we have this chain that goes to this yoke that is tied into the hitch itself, and that chain then is tightened on both sides here. There's this rubber kind of a urethane bushing on there that tightens that up, and as it tightens up, it actually takes this whole part and starts to lift it to make it a little bit more level and to distribute the weight of the hitch coming onto this. And I tell you, that makes this thing tow like you don't even know it's back there. So the Hitchgate Solo works out pretty well with our 2-inch receiver that ties everything together and makes a real solid mount. But if you come in here, let me show you that I've also put on a couple of hitch stabilizers. And what they do is go through and they prevent any movement happening laterally or up and down here as this comes into the Hitchgate receiver, and then the Hitchgate receiver into the main truck's receiver. It goes through and just makes a real solid mount for that. On the next episode of UTADV, we'll take you to Capitol Reef, where we put the rhino through its paces. Hope to see you there.